I'm going to be speaking how C8 fails our farmers. So I'm going to mention the BC Grain Growers. That's the group that I met with in Dawson Creek a couple of weeks ago. Good folks, President Malcolm Odermatt of Fort St. John, Vice President Jennifer Critcher of Tower Lake, Robert Vanderlinden of Clayhurst, Ernest Weep from Rose Prairie, and researcher Kristen Brody of Fort St. John. At a time when our farmers are getting hit with all these increased costs of input costs, the government should be looking at any way possible how to support our farmers. So this is what I heard. This is from Farmers Direct. So from Ernest Weeb, Rose Prairie. Fuel has doubled over 12 months from 73 cents a litre to $1.55 a litre this year. Last year it was $110,000 in 2021 for fuel. And in 2022 it'll be $230,000, Madam Speaker. Inputs have doubled, seed has doubled, fertilizer has doubled, like I've already said. What C8 doesn't do, what's been asked of the government to do is to extend the carbon tax exemption to propane and natural gas. Instead of just diesel, it really needs to be applied across the board. For some, maybe if you're in Toronto or Ottawa or Vancouver, heating your shop might be an option, but where we live, in northern BC, it gets down to -40 for long periods of time. It really isn't an option. And when you talk about natural gas and propane, it's also used in grain drying. So it's very much a needed commodity up there. And we're asking the government to add propane and natural gas to be exempted from fuel. So, we're talking about carbon tax credits to our farmers, and I haven't even brought up the fact of what they really do in terms of putting carbon in the ground and carbon sequestration and all the other measures that farmers really contribute to our environment but don't get credit for. And this is from the Member of Parliament for Foothills in a previous speech. From the very beginning, when the Liberals have talked about their carbon tax, they have always said it is going to be revenue neutral and that whatever anyone pays into the carbon tax, they are going to get back in a rebate. We know from the Parliamentary Budget Officer that came out last week that this is completely untrue. In fact, Canadian farmers only get about $1.70 for every $1,000 of eligible expenses that they pay on the farm. That is definitely not revenue neutral. In fact, that is only a fraction of what a farmer or farm family producer or agri-food business would spend in a carbon tax. According to Bill C8, the fall update on page 83, the rebate is $1.73. When I read that, I thought it was $100. This is the member for Huron-Bruce. I thought it was per $100 of eligible expenses, but it is actually per $1,000 of eligible expenses. Therefore, if farmers have $1 million in eligible expenses on their farms, they would not even receive an $1,800 rebate. Madam Speaker, it's cents on the dollar. And this again when farmers at an all-time high of just pure risk and pure money that they're spending, and all dependent on the weather to get our food on our tables. The PBO recently updated its fiscal cost of 234, what farmers would save. Previously, reports were done for its predecessor, C206. As you can see, the numbers are relatively similar, with cumulative costs being $1.107 billion, Madam Speaker. So clearly, Madam Speaker, we have a plan. The government could be putting this in C8, as I heard the member across the way even refer to it. This would be a really easy fix for farmers, really supportive for farmers, and especially a very trying time that we're stepping into in 2022. So, Madam Speaker, the Liberals are wondering why, they say we're holding up debate and holding up the House and the rest of it. But when there's simple things like this that they could be doing for farmers across the country, especially farmers in my riding that I just spoke to 2 weeks ago, it's unfortunate that they won't make those simple changes that might get some support across Canada on that. And most of all, whenever we put our farmers at risk and their businesses fail, what concerns me is one failed farm business, the implications to our food security and food on our tables across the country and well into the future. We all know that once farms fail, they rarely come back. So, Madam Speaker, I'll finish up with this. The Liberals know the right thing to do on C8. They have the opportunity to fix it and make it better. I would ask them to do that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House.
Towards the conclusion of his speech, Madam Speaker, he justified why Conservatives have intentionally slowed this down. He basically just said that it's because there's something in here that he would like to see different. But that's not how the democratic process works. This bill was introduced, it was debated here, it went to committee, suggestions were made there, it comes back from committee. You win some, you lose some. He might not get exactly what he's looking for right now, but at the end of the day, he has to respect the fact that the democratic process worked. So what he's basically saying is, because he didn't get his way, he's going to kick and scream and not let this this bill pass. Is that essentially what he's trying to tell this House?
Honourable Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I really look forward to opportunities to speak to the House, and this is the first time I've been speaking to C8 in respect to farmers and the effects of C8 in a negative way to their operations and really their farm families. So this is part of the debate. This is part of what the House of Commons is for. And the member, I wish he would recognize that across the way. This is part of democracy. And we've seen this government across the way do a bunch of things that are frankly undemocratic that Canadians are becoming more and more aware of. The strong-handed, strong-armed Prime Minister, and followed up by support like members that have just asked the question. So my hope would that we could get some better measures in C8, and that's why we debate today. Thank you.
Honorable député de Berthier-Masquinongé.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his speech. I appreciate the fact that he talked a lot about agriculture. It's true that we're on the committee together. I'd like to ask what more can be done for the farming world. Of course, there are credits that apply across the board, but what would be a more cutting-edge way of dealing with these issues and helping our farmers? For example, there's compensation for supply management. There's environmental issues. I'd like to hear more from him. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a great opportunity for me to talk once again about C234. This is the measure that we referred to that could potentially give carbon tax exemption to farmers for propane and natural gas, for drying, for heating their shops, etc. So there's a perfect opportunity. It's not been finished yet, the votes. We still have an opportunity to support it. I would hope that the members across in the Liberal Party would support a measure like this because they missed the opportunity before if they really want to do great things for our farmers in this country. So that opportunity is still forthcoming, and again, I hope to see support for that across the way.
The Honourable Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies for his speech. He obviously cares a lot about the farmers in his riding. He also, I know, has a lot of small businesses in his riding, a lot of tourism operators, and yet this government has abandoned small businesses and tour operators in the last year because they haven't extended the supports they need to get through this last Omicron variant. The tourism industry has pleaded to extend those benefits to the end of the summer. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business wants CEBA loans extended for 2 years, and this government has abandoned them. I'm just wondering why the Conservatives are siding with the government in abandoning small businesses and tourism operators.
The Honourable Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
I really respect the member, but to say that we're siding with the other side is really rich. When we just have seen the terms of the NDP Liberal marriage, it's clear for all to see. But I'll just bring up one example of the way the government promised one thing. They said carbon tax was going to be neutral. But here again, we see from the PBO themselves, it said that the net benefits, that just this one carbon tax offering alone, this exemption, would save farmers across Canada $1.107 billion. That would be huge for our farm families and our farmers across the way, across this land. So my hope, again, is that Bill C234 passes. Again, the government makes a good change to C8, but I digress. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the time today.